we don't have to start right away. We could just settle in. Everybody enjoying themselves. Everybody go to the bathroom. Everybody have their little drinks and stuff in front of them. Dave, get it started. Get it started.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing programs beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news. Sometimes we make you laugh. Most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by
Bridget. You can find me at youtube.com/@punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And we have special guests today.
Of course, Jamie Ruby from Sci-Fi Vision, which is youtube.com/@sci-fi vision, the words, which you can clearly spell, who has her own Fromcast, which I was on, actually, not terribly long ago. Obviously, what was the episode? I think it was
earlier in the season, I think.
Oh, that was like a million years ago. And of course, Dawn Barker from Relishing the Dead, or The Relishing Dead, or the ladies of the Relishing Dead people that I love so much, which you can find on youtube.com/@Relishing the Dead podcast. And I know that the group is facebook.com/groups/Relishing the Dead, actually, which is the one you should probably hit up if you are on Facebook, because that's where the magic happens, basically.
It is. If you want to see some excellent interviews with some of the cast from, you can check Relishing the Dead on their Facebook, because
we have interviewed David Alpay, Liz Saunders twice, Scott McCord twice, Harold Perrineau twice, Ricky, Elizabeth Moy, Smiley, Jamie McGuire, and we're getting ready to have Fatima.
That's so exciting.
Yes.
But Jamie Ruby's also interviewed the cast of, and I think you had a director, I think, also on from.
No, we had John Griffin, Jeff Bender, and Jeff Pink. Yeah, not that long.
That's awesome.
I would love to get Harold on our show, so maybe next year, we hope.
2026, basically, right when season 4 comes out.
They have to carefully craft these stories, Dave, to screw with our minds. Takes a lot of work.
The conditions have to be just yay right. What I want to do first is to start off by saying, this is what I've genuinely wanted to know as a prepper, not as a human prepper. I meant just as a prepper for our audience, for these two wonderful people wonderful guests who are on our podcast.
This question's for me. It's not.
I'm like, no, Bridget, take a beat. Put your feet up. This is not about being a prepper. Jamie Ruby, what made you decide to go into From as a series? What kept the torch lit? What drew you to it to begin with?
Now, I first started watching it before it was on because I got screeners and I just fell in love with the mystery and everything. I'm somebody who will really go, obviously, clearly, since it was 6.5 hours, go deep into a mystery. I'm not actually a horror person usually. If it's sci-fi horror, then it's good. But also Harold Perrineau, too, because I was a big Lost fan.
We talked about that before we got on, because you'd said that you were podcasting around that time, yes. 2004, 5, 6.
Something like that, yeah. It's been a while.
Old school OG podcaster.
We've only changed our show name a gazillion times, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm sure after 20 years it's changed. Shouldn't have said that, because now it feels like a lot. When you started talking about From, did you feel the fervor of the audience participation? Was that more this year, or was that always from the start?
That was more this year, but I didn't start doing the deep dives until this year. We had just done sort of a review thing on our other show. But yeah, this year, the fan base, I feel like, has gotten a lot bigger. I don't think I would have gotten quite into it as deep as I did if I hadn't found the community on Discord.
And tapped into it.
Yeah. My friend Julie B. Deep Dives, she got me so into it, and I've been doing it since then.
Julie B. Deep Dives on YouTube also as well. Just shout out to her. You guys both put in your StreamYard guest link in the pinned chat on your YouTube channel, so that folks can just jump on and if they want to and talk about the show. Dawn, I'm so excited to have you on, first of all.
Thank you.
You're a great friend of the show and in life, and it's been a thing where I've wanted to have you on something for the longest time, but also being on with Eliza, our really great friend and supporter, and Barb, and all you lovely ladies have supported the podcast invariably over the years. When it came to From, what was the impetus? How did that start? Were you guys there from the very beginning, or was it something that you kind of just like, oh, season 2, let's start talking about the show?
This was like over a year ago. We were starving for something to watch because TWD is gone. So we're having the TWD withdrawal. So Pam messaged me and she says, Dawn, you got to watch the show. I think I went through the first 2 seasons because we had to wait for season 3. And I was like, Eliza, Carol, Barb, you got to watch the show. We got a Rick, we got a Glenn. It's like survival. We got to get into this. And we were hooked ever since.
Honestly, Dawn, you telling me at camp at Dirty Bingo with Michael Trainer, you and Eliza were both like, you have to watch From. Everyone here should watch From. Then when I went home, I think that's when I finally watched it. I was like, all right, fine. Eliza said it like 10 times already. Let me just go ahead and watch it. I had watched it already when we had decided as a podcast to cover season 3. So thank you.
And it wasn't a Fallout situation either. It was more like, Dave, I want to be open and honest with you. I watched the first season.
Watched this. I've watched
Not like Fallout where it's like, no, I didn't watch anything.
And he went to the bathroom and then I was like, I watched this show. We found out way later.
It has captivated the whole TWD community, though.
There's a lot of crossover. I think it depends on the type of Walking Dead fan. So some people didn't like the horror aspect of The Walking Dead and really were just invested in the story. The horror part is the part that I was excited about. Once you get into kind of those special effects things and then this idea of it being really scary and trying to survive, and do you get to finally be who you really meant to be because you can lose the shackles of the boring trudgery of
convention,
normal everyday life. When I talk to people, I can usually tell who's going to end up liking it. I was very, very wrong with the people on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I thought Rachel was going to love this show,
really?
But she does not
Rachel and
love it.
Charity hopped off. We did the season 1 and season 2 recaps, and they hung in, I think, for both.
They did. Yeah, they did.
And even Charity hung in for the first few episodes of season 3.
Tian Chen ruined it for them. And then Rachel doesn't like being strung along with too many questions for too long. So
Tells you a lot about
it was too much mystery
Her love
for
life.
her. It's too much mystery.
Yeah. She doesn't like it in guys, doesn't like it in
The
shows.
first thing activated me when they killed a kid in the first scene. I was like, this is going to be good.
Oh, see? That's also
something about killing
also
children.
a Walking
That's
Dead
great.
thing.
Yes, it is.
Interesting homage, sure. Yeah. Here's where I actually wanted to start. The title we already went through in the last episode, and it has to do with angels and how scary they look. And we're literally talking about Revelations and how angels look absolutely frightening from the first chapter and all that. And you can go back to that episode to listen to that. I was going to put images and then I thought, no, I don't want to scare people because angels in the Bible are scary. I won't do that here either. Screw you. Second of all, where I wanted to actually start, because it's a very good focal point for the episode, because I obviously have a think after I watch these shows and take massive amounts of notes that will be available on Ko-fi later. What Father Khatri says to Boyd in the tool shed behind Colony House is an interesting focal point for the episode, because what he says is, isn't it ironic that you're willing to protect one child over another, let's say, or the other children, or this child? Why do you pick favorites? And I say that because of what the people in this town did to their own children to live forever, quote unquote, and what we're willing to do as a people to get what we want, quote unquote, because it's questionable, versus what people are willing to do here to save children, let's say, or save their children, or save their future children, or their a pregnant child, etc., whatever it is. So I thought that was an interesting focal point, because it says a lot about what these people, what the people beforehand were willing to do, what Miranda / Tabitha and Jade / Christopher did, or were willing to do, or were trying to do. I thought a lot of that has to do with that one moment, Father Khatri, let's say, fake Father Khatri.
I agree with you. I think that conversation is really important. I more, though, usually go into trying to figure out, I guess, what or who he is or what's going on with that. But yeah, I mean, he makes a point that he's not protecting Elgin when Elgin is basically maybe being tricked. We don't know at that point. He's not necessarily doing something to hurt somebody. He's trying to protect her. He thinks he's protecting her, but obviously it's not going so well. But Boyd's really quick to cross that line, which I was extremely surprised about, that he was, even willing to go there, and more surprised that everybody let him go there is the other thing.
I kind of agree with Jamie. I was really surprised that the townspeople were letting him go there. Fatima was a special person to those townspeople that were there. So I think that's why they were letting him go that far. Maybe if it was Jade there, he might not have agreed with that.
So what you're saying is essentially that depending on who the victim is how much we care about what people are willing to do to hurt people.
Yes.
But here's the thing. It's really been bugging me in my mind. When you talk about children, were these children such a-holes that these parents thought that sacrificing all of them, I'm talking about the parents from the past or the earlier generation who basically are the monsters of this town? Is that what we're saying here? Is that the monsters of this town were the parents of the children that were sacrificed so that they could live forever? Is that what we're saying?
Uh-huh.
And if
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
disagrees, no disagreement. I hate that. Here's the thing. What did these children do? When we compare what Boyd is willing to do, what Elgin's willing to do for Fatima to have her not baby, what Boyd's willing to do to hurt Elgin to get to Fatima, what Boyd was willing to do earlier to protect Fatima from the fact that she murdered Tilly, which is something that everybody seems to be glossing over, by the way. It's like, oh, nobody got hurt. Elgin says this earlier in the episode. He says, nobody got hurt. A lady got murdered because of Fatima. Come on, man. It's interesting to see how far people are willing to protect certain people in this town when a bunch of people killed their children to live forever. Was it a different time? Is it one of those cancel culture things? Like, we would never do that today.
Yeah,
would never
they've
do
been
it.
canceled.
Now, I will put this in the form of a question because is it conceivable that this town, like Boyd, did he break? Did he not break? We'll get into that. But could we see in the future, season 4, season 5, season 22, will we get to the point where the townspeople are willing to kill their children to either live forever, to get out of this town, whatever it is, to solve the mystery? Do you think we might be pushed to the point where children might get killed?
Hard pass on that, Dave. Hard pass. What we've seen is the exact opposite. Everybody in this town is fighting really to work together to get everybody home, because even though Tabitha gets out, she still is thinking about how she wants to get back so she can be there for her kids. To go back to a nightmare world, to be there for your children, that's a lot. That's like a big ask out of somebody, and she's willing to do that. Everybody's kind of trying to right the wrongs of the people who have been there before, but arguably some of them are the same people, which is confusing. Who knows? But I couldn't see it going that way because it seems to be that they are really clamoring to hold on to their humanity. We don't know what this world looked like before this. If they are the monsters, then did this act cause this place to become so twisted like they are? And if that's the case, then they're the root of the issue, not the place.
What they did caused this place to become as twisted as it is what you're saying?
Correct.
I just want to throw this out there. It's bordering Ancient Aliens, Bridget, so brace yourself.
Oh, God.
Because I've been thinking a lot about, we've kind of touched on it here and there in our previous episodes, which are so far behind us that you might not remember. Every now and again in frames, we see the quote unquote Matthews house dilapidated in the background somewhere or whatever. Mm-hmm. Which formerly belonged to the Pratts from the first episode. And we do get another glimpse of the first episode when Jim says, I miss the way things were before. I start to think about Frank getting drunk at the bar. And then I start thinking to myself, is it possible that he had left Lauren and, was it Heather? I can't remember exactly the child's name, but the two, his wife and child in the house. I wonder sometimes if he did that because something told him to do that, to leave them to their own devices, that somehow that they would get tricked and hurt because this town seems to want certain things to happen. And then he got certain messages. I wonder sometimes.
I would think that had to do more with the fact that he was just trying to self-medicate. Uh-huh. He was trying to avoid dealing with the fact that they were in a town with monsters and it's horrible. And you've got a child there and you're worried about her and you're worried about your wife. And what if everybody you know dies? And it's easy to spiral. If it's fight or flight and your thing is to take flight, that's what he was doing. That was like the only way he could. You can't physically leave. So how do you deal with it if you're not a fighter? So that's how he did it.
TWD terms.
He self-medicated. That's why Boyd is so angry at him. It's not the fact that he was drunk. It's that he told him, you have to nail your windows shut because the windows have to be nailed shut if you have a child in the house. Kids are susceptible to these things. They lie. They say whatever you need to hear so that you'll let them in. We saw a grown man do it at Colony House later in that season. Mm-hmm. So you can't trust kids to be able to decipher that. It was irresponsible. By burying his head in the sand and drinking his problems away instead of dealing with things head on, he allowed his family to die.
By the way, this is Bridget pulling back from Ancient Aliens, Dave.
Yes.
She's the straight man.
I don't know what happened. This show gave us a different dynamic. This has never been this way. I'm always the one that's like, but what if Bigfoot is real? And everyone's like, you don't believe that. And I'm like, but I do. Dave will be like, it's the
Well,
reincarnated.
I'm still chill.
And
I'm still
like,
chill.
and I'm like,
Listen,
that
the
doesn't
hair
make any
is still
sense.
under the hat.
But then he's right. So I don't know.
I
Maybe
just-
you are right. I'm wrong. I don't know, Dave. I have no idea.
I want to hit on what you just said about him for I don't know how long. We don't know how long it's been. Like, maybe we do. Some people do. They're so smart. But how long Frank has been in that house with his family, and how long did it take him to not nail the windows shut? And so I wonder if this is my real question, is whether he left it that way because somebody told him to. A voice, perhaps, like Sarah and Elgin and whatnot.
I kind of feel like if that was the case, they would have brought that up by now.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, but I feel like we would have more of an inkling. To touch on what Bridget was saying about Boyd's reaction, I do think some of that was also self-reflection because he feels like he has not taken care of Ellis because he killed his mother and he still feels responsible. So I think it makes him more worried about all the children. And, I mean, obviously Ellis isn't a child, but he's still his son. Like he said, man protects his family.
I just wanted to bring that up against what we just talked about how far are you willing to go to either leave this town or live forever, whatnot, whatever the story is. Like Sarah, are you willing to kill Ethan for everybody to leave the town? Blah, blah. The theme keeps repeating. With that, we shall move on. I got the message. Okay, everybody? You're all against me. It's
Just
fine.
me.
Actually, I like the disagreement. It's fine. Somebody will say, Dave, you're on the money. And I'll be like, please don't listen to me. It's fine.
That's what
Listen
you
to
want,
Bridget.
though.
She's the
That's
rational
what he
one.
wants, is for people to be like, no, Dave, I agree with you. Your opinions are everything. You're a genius.
But then
And
they'll
also-
go into a whole
and
thing
also
and I'll
have
be
I
like, I
told you he
cannot
looks
follow you.
so handsome today. And then I'm like, why?
Why is David Carranza
Why-
comment bombing this video?
Why are people feeding into his ego? Why?
It's just David Carranza.
It is David Carranza. Shout out David Carranza. I hope you listen to this episode.
Don, peer pressure. Where do you want to go next?
Sarah interrogating Elgin.
Let me pre-pen that scene with the fact that Boyd, and this is something that we've been waiting for slowly but surely, the people start sharing information.
Thank God.
Okay, we start gathering all the information that everybody else has individual experience from this town, and Boyd finally puts together that, oh, Sarah listens to messages. Elgin seems to be getting messages. Let's put these idiots together and maybe the Furbies will talk. Old reference. Just look it up, Furbies. They talk to each other.
They do.
I love how it referenced it in this episode that Elgin comes into town and he makes it to a church and Sarah happens to be there. And it's where she was again in this episode, the last episode of the season. And how she even mentions, when you got in here, my heart broke for you because this place seems to prey on nice people. And so we're here again. And I get it. It's kind of great to see these two people who seem to have gotten messages from this town. The people that were probably the most sympathetic to until Sarah does crazy things from the start.
Yeah, but I'm still sympathetic to her. It like turned again. Yeah.
Listen, not everybody agrees with us, but that's fine.
I get
That's
it.
fine, everybody. It's fine. Everybody looks fine. Dawn, so what was your favorite part about that whole scenario?
Sarah was just a badass. She went in and interrogated and got where Fatima was. I was like, go Sarah. Like, I disliked her the first 2 seasons, but I'm on the Sarah train now.
My people.
Love that Sarah said she didn't want the town to take Boyd's soul.
Like it took hers.
I think Sarah thinks she's too far gone and she knows that people haven't forgiven her and she doesn't know if she can come back from it anyway. So she's kind of in that moment, I think, being selfless because she knows Boyd won't. I think she knows no matter what happens, Boyd is not going to go far enough. And she even, I think, says that. I feel sympathetic towards her too. Hate to see Sarah do that as much as it's not good.
Especially
It's so great to see it.
knowing her origin. They don't come out and say it. Thank God, because we're not that dumb. We don't need
It
to hear
sounded terrible.
absolutely everything. It seems like it was a domestic violence situation. Her brother came to move her out. So to know that she was this meek, mild thing, unable to kind of stand up on her own, unfortunately, to come from there to this is a really big deal for her character. Yeah, we see the stuff in between. She kills her brother. It's not intentional,
Right.
but it does happen. But everything about her story is so tragic. It's like hard not to feel for her, and to see her be strong for once is kind of nice.
But also like relinquishing a part of herself to the will of the town, which does sound eerie. in a weird way, because then it does kind of sound like some of the entities, and I know that word gets thrown around, the from sphere, the entity. What is the entity? I'm not going to get into it now, but these entities that, like the man in yellow or the voice on the radio, they're probably the same. But what I'm saying, the voices that Sarah hears that laugh when the thought of them trying to find Fatima, and the whatever, all these messages that people get from other things, doesn't she resemble now, as she's depicting herself as sort of like someone who has no soul, as one of those things in a weird, but she's doing it on behalf of the town?
She's also rejecting the voices this time too, which I was just thinking about as you said that. She hears them too again. And this time she's able to say, no, I'm not going to listen to you and I'm not going to trust you. So it's almost like maybe for her, that's her own little bit of redemption in that sense.
It finally pushed her to stand up for herself, which is something she was unable to do in our
Right.
world.
I almost feel like maybe she wouldn't have done it for someone else, that she felt indebted to Boyd, and that's why she did it.
That's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, she does, because he's allowed her to live this long, really. Everybody was yelling for her head on a pike, basically, and he sacrificed his reputation with the rest of the people in the town by saying, I can't tell you why, but she has to live.
Right.
And had she not lived, she wouldn't have got to this point. It's the thing that we all love, is that the breadcrumbs that lead you to this moment in time where she's useful. Because here's the thing. I have to go back to this idea from my first watch, is that would it have made a difference? Because in the end, they finally get there, and they probably would have finally gotten there. Some voice, the kimono wearing lady, would have told Elgin, okay, you can have them pick up Fatima now. We're done with her. Then what does this whole exercise become? Is it about finding Fatima in the end? Or is it really about pushing Sarah to a point where she'll do something monstrous, or pushing Boyd to start doing monstrous things? Is it to break Boyd? Really? Isn't it? Or does Sarah prevent Boyd from going too far? They don't get what they want in the end, really, if you think about it. The monsters, quote unquote, get what they want, really.
Do you think, though, that they would have killed Fatima? Because I've kind of heard both sides of that. Some people think they wouldn't have given Fatima back. That Elgin just thought that isn't necessarily what would have happened.
I almost felt like, would this been a weird naturalistic type, the young eats its mother situation? He's alive now again, and does he have to feed? I don't know, because we don't really know. We've seen the inside of him, but we don't really know anything about how their anatomy functions.
Right. Oh, you know what? I feel like I want to move past all of this, because this often happens to us, is that when you say something, it triggers something else. Okay, forgive me. It's not like I'm trying to bowl you over and just completely roll over your point. But I take your point that the young eats the old bubble, whatever. I get that. One thing that I thought about was, is the man in yellow an advent? Why is he out during the day? As if he is a monster. Let's just say he's a monster. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's special. Maybe he's the entity, whatever. I'm getting into that. It's fine. But what you kind of take for granted a little bit is that all the monsters in the caverns that are underneath the root cellar room thing in the back, they're also up and at 'em during the day as well. And that's a thing that doesn't happen. So what is the significance? Is it the music Jade plays, the 7-note phrases that wake them up for this event? Is it because of the music that even Jamie Maguire, Captain Smiley himself, is able to rise from his doom? There's a lot there. But the thing I wanted to focus on more was the fact that the monsters were up and at 'em during the day. What does that mean?
I'm not sure the other ones could go outside. They're still underground during the day, which we've seen before.
It's a big question. But we've seen them during the day. They don't really rouse from their slumber.
Well, that one time
do.
when Victor was under the ground, when they're like, next time we're going to keep you here, or whatever they say, something like that.
What is it? They rally
As I call her,
a
the
little bit.
Lady, but that
Kimono
lady,
wearing, right.
yes, because of her weird
they ditched
sounds. They did
after
ditch that
season
because
2.
we made fun of it relentlessly. She takes the baby, the sack down, and I assumed that was like, I don't know, that was why they were awake. I didn't really think much about it, honestly.
Yeah.
It kind of escaped my notice that they were just all in their normal face, not their monster face as well, which is kind of common, right? Because when you first see them down there, it's like they're well, they're in their natural state of whatever that is. Who cares? But now they're in their human-ish faces, and maybe that's the music, and it's the thing that makes them feel young forever. That's fine. But I wanted to point a finger on this, and I'm going to show you an image of this because it's just, you look at the faces as they pan through the crowd with the peanut that is growing, right? The Jamie Maguire Smiley peanut that is growing out of that sack, the cocoon, the carapace, and their faces, like parents, are filled with joy. Genuine, not terrifying, but genuine joy for this being to be born. I'm going to just put an image of just one of them from a distance as Smiley's head pops out of that cocoon. For some reason, it makes me chuckle every time I think of it. This guy in the background, this is just after.
Kind of looks like the man in yellow.
It isn't. It really isn't. In the fraction of a second afterwards, he closes his mouth. He doesn't look anything like him. But it's just his mouth open like this is just so funny to me. He's like, oh, my baby boy. There's something so funny about that.
I was just thinking maybe flashback of like a ritual, like a birth every time. And that's why we were kind of seeing, not really the music brought it together. I just think they were just showing you what happened. That's how I was looking at it. I'm not saying that's the way it was, but it was like, this is their ritual when a birth, and you were seeing that.
Well, everything's so cyclical.
Yeah.
It definitely could have happened before. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Let me add one more element to this piece, because the kimono wearing lady, which is what I'm going to call her, not woo, when she goes into that room and delivers the baby, she drops the peanut on the floor, the dirt, essentially, that Smiley comes out of. She kneels down, and you even saw that in that photo, that she stays down on the floor kneeling. You would think that she would be just as joyful as the rest of the monsters in the room, and yet she still has that sort of sourpuss, solemn, almost subservient face. So I wonder sometimes if she's maybe another victim of this place, and that she's subservient to it, kind of like Sarah, kind of like Elgin, but she kind of fell in.
It's like everybody in this town is doomed to repeat everything for all of time. Even the bad guys. Smiley isn't allowed to die. He has to come back now and be walking around at night.
As what?
It's like, no matter what, everyone has to be there, and they're all reliving the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Right. It's like you get to live forever, but as what?
Yeah.
And in what capacity?
Right.
It's strange, too, that she looks so different. And you say how, like, she's subservient. Maybe she was brought into it, didn't want to be into it. Maybe she was punished or something, and maybe that's why she looks so different, which I'd never thought of before. But it is odd that one of these is not like the other, and everybody else is, smiling, and it's kind of strange.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yep. Because you'd think that this is what she wants.
She's in between worlds. She can go to the surface when it's daylight and communicate.
Daywalker.
Yeah. I mean, what is that? It's not even a theory quite, but thing that I think about, a lot of times in shows, they have like the savior. I mean, we have this in Last of Us and in Twilight, for crap's sake. There's always like this half human, half whatever the thing is that saves everybody. He almost wonders if it's the opposite, and if maybe Fatima actually was pregnant by Ellis and like it somehow hijacked her pregnancy, and it's going to turn out that Smiley's part human and like has these special powers. I don't think it's the man in yellow, because I don't think they're going there. But it's interesting that the man in yellow has different powers than the other ones. And it makes me think maybe he will too. Maybe the man in yellow was another one that was reborn.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was getting to. The reason why I brought up that the monsters were all in their full human form and happy and joyful and what during the day. So that's why I brought that up partially. But I'm so glad that you said maybe this version of Smiley could be different, kind of like the man in yellow. He can maybe go travel during the day. I say this to only bring up what Jade finally says, because you see him throughout the episode. He's giving in to the physics of this place, kind of like Christie's ball of fire in the sky, the sun conversation with Ellis brought up near the end of season 2. He's giving into the physics of this place. I don't get this place, but I'll play by its rules. I won't pretend this is some sort of escape the room using our own physics, etc. And he says to Jim/Tabitha at the bar, he says something about energy. The first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed. So could it be the case that the Smiley that we see emerge from the cocoon is different somehow? We're not going to know right away.
I'm wondering if we'll ever see another monster die and then get reborn.
I know. I was thinking that too. I can just imagine how frustrating this would be. I'm waiting for season 4 so I can see Boyd's reaction to seeing him again, because the one thing you thought you had been able to do, you took something bad and you turned it into something good, and you've been clinging on to this hope, and this son of a bitch is back.
I'm sure the actor is jazzed. Jamie McGuire's jazzed.
Well, we love
sounds
him.
jazzed.
We love him. He's creepy. But
Gingers unite.
it's just like, it's so frustrating.
It is, because it's like, does everybody have a special thing? Julie is the story walker or whatever. Does everybody have a special thing that they do to complete the story that continues?
And if they only communicated with one another, they would find out their special powers.
Well, I asked Harold that question, and he said that's because everything has happened so fast, they haven't got a time to have a town meeting.
Well,
Sure.
their one town meeting that they did have didn't go so well. So, to be fair.
They did their best, everybody. I get it, though. Yes. Well, that was my argument, by the way. Everybody was really frustrated about the meeting in the diner. And I was like, but I get everybody's reaction. It makes complete sense. We're living under constant terror, blah, 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 whatever. So I get your frustration as an audience watching the town eat its own. But this is what would happen. The people are just like this. They either go backwards and they go, it shouldn't be this way, I'm entitled. Or they go, well, I'll just do whatever you say. Well, just whatever Boyd says is what we'll do, is why we let him torture Elgin, basically, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to be responsible for this. One thing that's pretty clear is that Jim was the key to Jade figuring out what the tree was all about, what the numbers were, all that stuff. Finally, answers, first of all. Can we just rejoice that we got answers?
Super
Is that the
excited
show?
about it. Yeah.
Listen, I'm not a Jim Matthews stan, but I am a Jim Matthews defender. How about that? Can I just say that? And
You're a
people
Jim
not-
Matthews apologist. You are.
I said defender.
No,
Man,
you're an
you gotta use
apologist.
the harsh words. Apologist. Oof. And yet he was the key to the whole thing. That's
He
fine.
was, I'll
That's
give
fine.
him
I just want
that.
to drop that note. Yeah.
No, I
Oh,
do
wow.
like Jim. I do
Knives
like
out,
Jim.
Bridget.
I do like Jim.
They liked him like starting from the episode before this. Before that, maybe not so much.
I've had my qualms
I
with
agree,
Jim,
I agree.
but he's an
You
alright
did.
character.
Yeah. He was a bit triggering, wasn't he, at times? But
Well, just stop gaslighting your wife, bruh. That's all. All I ask.
there's enough gaslighting from everybody, Bridget. But okay, that's cool. That's fine. And then the man in yellow goes, there's a cost to having all the information. Can't this guy catch a break? First of all, okay, you may not like Jim, and you may have enjoyed the fact that he got yeeted off the show with his neck being torn out. You may have enjoyed that. But the human side of me is like, yeah, I mean, he wasn't that bad.
I was
Can
sad
we
about
agree on
it.
the fact that Jim wasn't that bad?
I was sad about it, if anything, for the kids to lose their dad. I mean, and really for Tabitha, because you lost your child, you were planning on going through with a divorce, and you end up in a monster town. Everything is horrible. But out of this monster town, at least, was the fact that maybe you and your husband were able to reconcile. And now that's not even a possibility anymore. All of it is tragic. It's pretty much the whole thing. But this whole show is everyone has like a really tragic story, and this is theirs.
It's what you literally said about Boyd, too, just a second ago. How he felt like he did something, and then all of a sudden that was taken away. Their marriage was repairing, and then all of a sudden Jim gets taken away.
Yeah.
Interesting symmetry there.
And then to know that your wife and your frenemy in a previous life were together is weird.
Pumping uglies.
It's a lot of weird information to receive kind of all at once. And then the man didn't even have the time to process it.
And Tabitha, too. She's like, I gotta go. Can you give me some time? He's like, yes, I can give you some time. That's a lot to process. The thing that I love the most about these shows is the innocuous things. In the bar, there's one scene where you see the little stop sign in the corner of the room as Jade and Tabitha are trying to figure out what the numbers are. How do we know what order they go in, right? You see that again in this shot. And it's something that we often bring up about messages from the beyond or God or whatever in some of the shows that involve a higher power of some kind. Is somebody trying to tell them to stop doing what they're doing?
It's probably just like a fun nod from the set director, but it's pretty cool. I like it, and I didn't notice it.
I didn't either.
Do you have a screenshot of the man in yellow from the opening sequence, from the drawings?
I do not.
I didn't put that together. I just read it. And I was like, oh, but it just goes to prove that he's been around for a long time, even though we haven't seen him.
His existence. Well, you do get to see one of Miranda's portraits is in the basement of the Kavanaugh home, which has made the From community go, oh, I bet we'll see the man in yellow somewhere down the line. I'm like, yes, you will. But just, geez, you're mythologizing somebody you don't know, the entity.
Well, apparently some kid on Reddit, it's his uncle, is the man in yellow. And
In
so,
real life?
yes, he knew he was going to be on the show. His uncle had told him that, but he didn't know when it was going to happen. Or his name is Sergeant
Canadian
Sanchez, SSGT Sanchez on Reddit. And this is in the R From series. It's like the season 3, episode 10 finale spoiler thread. People are just talking about it after they watch it. And he just says, so fun fact, the man in the yellow suit is my uncle. And I've been looking forward to this episode for some time, ever since he told me he was in it. He never said who he was, but upon the unveiling, I was pleasantly surprised. And then people were like really asking him, like, does he know why he's on the show? Like, does he know what his character does? Obviously what everybody wants to know. And he stated, well, he never mentioned who the character he was playing was. All he said was it's going to be an important character. And so I'm hoping for a 4th season renewal so he could play the character more. This was posted when this aired, obviously. So this is over a month ago.
Oh, it's been that long?
I wonder how long he was holding on
He
to that.
told me, and he said at the time there was no 4th season news at the time that he spoke to his uncle about it. Obviously, that has come out since then. So
We found that out because of Harold Perrineau's video, I think, wasn't it? With the little bottle tree message, I think it was, right?
Yeah. In that thread, then people are talking about how, oh, well, he's in the opening sequence. And yeah, as soon as I saw him, I knew he was the guy from that one picture or whatever. I hadn't put it together because you know me, I skip the intro sometimes.
Live in reality.
Yeah, I'm not
It's
paying
not
attention.
what you can be in the
I'm sorry.
clouds.
I do not have a board on my wall where I have like the crazy like string going everywhere. Like it's all connected. I'm not.
She's not like me. Is that what you're trying to say?
I can't do it to myself, Dave. We both know I could go there.
You know that if you did, I would pull back and start being rational. But I think you enjoy the fact that I'm struggling.
Playing the
I
other
think you
side.
love it. You secretly like, yeah, exactly. Revenge is a dish best served cold, David. Anyway, I brought up the stop signs because of something specific. I wonder sometimes because of the way the music Jade's playing. What is the blast radius on an evil song? Because he even admits it's possible finally, because he's like, what's the harm of playing music? And Jim's like, which I completely agree with. I love how Jim pulls back. He goes, well, we've discovered in this episode in various ways, in varying degrees, this place does not have your best interest at heart. Right, Elgin? Right, Sarah? Right, everybody on this show? Julie, why are you jumping into the ruins, story walking? Because it's not going to turn out the way you think it's going to turn out. So when you see the stop sign in the bar, as they're trying to figure out this music thing, when they start playing the song, which they're like, well, like, we want them to because we're terrible. The audience is the worst. And they want them to get into little shenanigans. This is a simple question. Do you think them playing the music, Jade playing the music, unlocked more than just the Nkui kids coming to, and them finally remembering the things? Do you think it also was responsible for Smiley being born? The possibility of that birth happening at that moment?
No.
I'm very curious.
No.
Really?
Unrelated.
Yeah, unrelated. I agree.
Unrelated.
I think the man in yellow came because they found out everything, but specifically the music.
Well, no, not specifically music, but let me put it in a different way. Did all these things have to happen all at once in different angles to produce the conditions for Smiley to be born?
No.
Even the music?
No, not for Smiley, no.
Okay.
That was going to happen either way.
Right.
I think the man in yellow came because of what they did, but not Smiley.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
So ultimately, Jim died because of what they did.
Right.
For unlocking the key, for them to be able to remember, Jim had to be there, which is interesting. Okay, fine.
Because they didn't.
Fine. Be against
Because
me.
if he didn't unlock that, Fatima was still there going to have the baby.
Correct.
Yeah.
Dave, you're wrong.
Dave, you're wrong.
You're just
okay, that's
wrong.
fine. That's fine.
It's weird. I remember when I saw it the first time, I thought at first the trap door was opening from the music, the way they filmed it, but I think it's just the timing of everything in the scene. Because
Yeah.
after I was like, why did I think that? I don't know. But I think it's just the way they did it. It makes it seem like that.
Well, because the music is playing while it's happening. In fact,
Yeah.
here's what I did. I actually, because I love the music so much, I at least got the 1:23 video here in the studio. I'm going to play it now because the sequence of events that happen are just so fast, so interesting, flipping back and forth between Ellis, Kenny, and Boyd, running to the root cellar, Fatima screaming out, them realizing, oh, there's a room behind here, the armor moves, let's play it. Them running to the cellar. Trapdoor opening.
See, that's what I was.
Magically.
Why I thought that.
Well, I figured it was just because the baby was coming.
Yeah, but who opened the door? Did somebody, one of them open it, or did it just...
Magically opened by itself.
I just
Because
assumed
the
it opened
kimono
on
wearing
its
lady
own.
is a magical lady.
Yeah.
So what I love the most about this is that when the piece starts playing, the subtitles say 7 notes, phrase playing, a different 7 notes, because 7 kids, 7 notes.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
It was composed for the show, correct?
Correct. I found out about it right after the episode aired. I was like, oh, who did that? It was like, oh, it was our musical guy. I forget his name.
Okay.
Somebody had said something about it on social media. David Alplay was excited and jazzed to play it live because he had done other roles where he played the violin. We wanted to exploit his talents. 7 notes for 7 kids. I think there are 7 different phrases too. So it goes back and forth between different measures.
For anyone looking, you can find the violin song on Chris Tilton's, the original soundtrack music composer, official website. It's Chris Tilton. The person spelled it incorrectly. Chris Tilton, Tilton. So christilton.com. It's called Eternal Lullaby.
We used to sing them lullabies. That's the only reason why I asked the question, is because the music starts playing, the trapdoor starts opening, this fat kimono wearing lady pulls out the little peanut, the big peanut, and it's so close. They basically miss her by fractions of a second, which is what the scene changes were trying to depict, is that she just about goes into the trapdoor or goes down the hole as they get in. So again, it's like, what was all that for?
That's the point, though, that after everything, they still didn't win. That it happened anyway, and like they went through hurting Elgin for nothing.
Just like all the parents hurting the children.
I would agree, right, Jamie? You had said you would assume the monsters would have taken Fatima after that. So
I'm not sure
really, they hurt Elgin for the sake of saving her life at the very least. How is that life going to look for her? It's not going to be good, right? She thought she couldn't get pregnant. She's been worried about this the whole time. This caused her to kill somebody. She's going to be really fractured after
I don't
this.
know how they're going to not tell people, though. I still just think they should have said Tilly went into the woods and just disappeared.
Why don't they just say the monsters did it?
Exactly.
The monsters ran a pole through what's-her-face's head and left her attached to a tree. Why wouldn't they just stab someone with gardening shears?
What was she doing out there? Who was she talking to? All these questions. Speaking of questions, we finally find out that Acosta's first name is Danny, or Danielle, I guess, which is interesting. Fine, whatever. Everybody hates her. I get it. I don't really hate her, actually.
She was the only one that was making the normal decision that as an audience, I feel like, because everybody else was just like, yes, let's torture Elgin. It's fine.
I was in the pro-torturing camp, so I'm very sorry.
I don't know. I'm more surprised than anything Donna and Kenny let him do it more than anything.
That Costa hasn't invested in the people in the town yet.
True.
That's true.
Yeah, she hasn't relinquished her role as an officer.
The newbie right now.
She hasn't been tested yet. This is why I was saying for the last few episodes how she seems like, or actually probably from the beginning when she came into town, she seems like she's being groomed for the new Boyd position. It's what I've been saying for several episodes, and how she's the Boyd without all the tragedy and all the baggage. The Boyd that they're not trying to break. And maybe that's what the town wants. The town ain't getting it. as far as we're concerned, as far as we want to be concerned. But going back to the torture scene, I love a little division in this group because Bridget's pro-torture, Jamie Ruby's anti-torture. Let's fight about it, okay? And put on your boxing gloves. And
I'm not pro-torture normally. I was just
you're
pro-torture
always.
In this instance. In our world, torture doesn't work because as soon as you start ripping somebody's fingernails off, they'll just tell you whatever you want to hear to get you to stop. But
I thought Jamie Ruby would like that particularly because of the Lost reference, Saeed pulling Sawyer's fingernails, I think it was. Yeah, okay. Just want to mention that.
In this instance, I was so worried about what was going to happen that I just wanted it solved. I've liked Elgin since the beginning. There's something really innocent and sweet about him, and I really liked him, and I really liked his moments with Sarah, and I felt for him. So I was so angry that he like fell victim to this whole thing.
And you kind of wanted him to be right too.
I did.
Because of our Angels
to some
conversation.
degree, I did, but I am just like, I don't know. Because at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if you play out this stupid melodrama, does everybody get to go home then? Is that why they keep saying, like, if you do this, you get to go home?
Well, so then isn't that a bigger question? Well, let me just first show you what your torture did, because you're a monster and I need to show you that you're a monster. Here we go. How about that? Elgin with no eye.
Yeah.
And that's how he's going to be for the rest of the series, everybody.
I know.
Whimpering.
Well, I mean, they'll cover
is the subtitle.
because the special effects alone take too long. Yeah, it's sad. I don't love it. I don't like this. And especially that it was Sarah.
You love it. Admitted that you love the special effects.
I love the special effects. That is sick. Look at that. That's great. Ugh. The baby cocoon, and then it like grows and it stretches and he like stands up and it's all stretched and bloody and gross. It's disgusting and it's amazing.
Yeah.
At the same time. Okay, so let's touch on this a little bit because I hate this, but I love it at the same time. Didn't do what it wanted to do. We did it anyway. Elgin suffers for it. We wanted him to be right because secretly we want people to play the game, to do the things that to solve the mysteries. But here's the thing. People are starting to come around to the fact that if we keep following the mystery, stop sign, if we keep following the mystery, in whose best interest is it? Elgin, you listen to the voices. Sarah, you listen to the voices. You follow the kimono lady, her stupid Polaroids, the story walking. In whose best interest is it? At one point, do you listen to Jim Matthews, who's the smartest person on the
Apparently.
At what point
Dave,
do you stop playing the game?
You only say that because you're like, in this, I'm Jim Matthews.
Yeah. And so at what point do we just quit playing the game? Does it make Frank, I'm not saying Frank Pratt's right or Abby's right. I'm not saying Abby's right either. But at what point do you, it's kind of like when they had the funeral for Tien Chen, how this moment where everybody got together and they rallied around a person. And wasn't that what this is all about? It's like, this is basically over Henry saying what Miranda said to him during his acid trip. It's about these people who just got together and were just taking care of each other. Little did we know that before that, the previous generation sacrificed their children. What do you think about that? Because the audience obviously wants them to do the things that make us entertained. We're yumming, watching a show while these people go down these rabbit holes. But at the same time, in whose best interest is it served?
Well, you could say like, okay, everybody, I'm Boyd and I tell everybody what to do and they listen maybe. We're not going to play these games anymore. We're not doing anything. But then there's going to be someone who's like, this voice in my head told me that if I do this, I get to go home and I'm miserable here and I don't want to be here anymore. And I miss my fiance or whatever. And I want to leave. So they're going to do it. It's impossible to control the whole situation. You just can't. You might as well unravel the mysteries that are there because they're going to do something stupid just to do something stupid. You're at least doing it thinking you're going to get an answer out of it.
You kind of wonder, though, how you, I guess, evaluate whether it's stupid or not, though. I was thinking as you were saying that, you have Tabitha and everything, and like, she's listening to, technically, to the voices she's hearing. I mean, it's not the same thing, but her and Jade are following the vision. So is that really that different from Sarah listening to the voice she hears? Because I think that they would have went further. I don't know that they would have hurt somebody.
Yeah.
But Elgin also thought he was protecting Sarah.
When I say stupid, I mean that kid who thought he was dating one of the monsters, but
No, you're right.
because that truly was stupid.
That was
but yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
I mean, listen, I'm
saying.
an apologist, so she was very attractive.
She was cute.
I'll leave it there.
He's an idiot, but yeah, sure.
He's an idiot, but yes, I get it. with his hipster mustache.
This mystery, and I would love, I don't know if you all would like this, but I would love to see a backstory next season of certain characters come to town so we can get more clues.
I've wanted to know what happened before, before what we've seen. We got the tiny bit that we got to see with Donna where they're like hiding the holes in the ground. I'm always interested to see Victor's story, like anytime we get any of those little flashbacks to that, because it does fill in pieces. Now, we don't know what the pieces that are being filled in are.
Right.
Because it's very much like lost in that way. Will this piece of information be relevant in 6 years? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe they're all dead.
I just worry that they've said before 5 seasons, that seems to be the consensus plan is. I just worry that a lot of this stuff, like, yes, I want to see backstory of these people, but is there going to be time for that and what's happening in the town? Part of it's going to have to give, and I wonder if we're never going to see any of it.
Probably not, but I could see a world in which the show finishes and maybe there's a little
spin-off
vignette season where you get like the little pieces before. And From has taken off, I will say that. But in the grand scheme of things, not really. Has it taken off and you can find the community online now? Yes. Am I so glad that they gave their younger actors the ability to post stuff on social media, because that's free marketing and they're better at it than you paying some old fuddy-duddy guy to do it? 1,000 times yes. Because the stuff I've seen by the actors has been 10 times more hilarious than anything that you could have planned. So good. The TikTok community for From is fairly large. So that's really what's garnered and like brought in people, is the actors doing these stupid memes and these joke videos, and they're amazing. I love it. I'm so glad that they're doing it. But in the grand scheme of things, when I'm talking to an average person and they're like, oh, what is your podcast covering? And I'm like, oh, we're covering Silo. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, it's on Apple TV. And then I'm like, we're covering From. It's a really great horror show. Oh, what is that? I've never heard of it. I don't even know how to explain it to you, because what I'm just going to tell you, like, these people get stuck in a town and you should watch it so that you can be miserable like me at the end of each season. Maybe, but it's on MGM Plus, and so that requires people like signing up for another subscription, which really, we're all tired of the subscription nonsense. So we're tired of signing up for endless subscriptions. At this point, I have cable again, just in a stupider way.
From needs a larger streaming platform.
MGM Plus has done great. This exceeds my expectations for a show on such a small streaming platform. They have money. It's MGM. But to go MGM Plus and to be able to do this is really great. I'm glad with what I've seen. I've been impressed. I say all of this to say I could even see it being a comic book at the end of this, because I think that the cult following for this is pretty visceral. Like, I think they would be wholeheartedly into it. And a comic book is cheaper to make, and it doesn't require special effects because you just draw everything. And we've seen it with a lot of other cult favorite shows. Buffy ended at its 7th season. It continued for 2 or 3 more years in seasons in comic book form. Same thing with Angel, also had a comic book because it was canceled at season 5 and they continued in a comic. Supernatural has had comic books. There are shows that end that are then continued through that media, and I could see this going that route.
But see, I think the problem is MGM Plus is not promoting that show with the merchandise, and they're losing out big time. I mean, we have to go make our own shirts, our own shirts. You can't buy.
They're not AMC, but they don't know that we've had other shows do this same thing and make the same mistake to not make merchandise for their fans. I don't know, just do to-order merchandising then.
Yeah, I still think, though, if it was on a bigger network, we wouldn't get 5 seasons. I've said that many times. Like, as much as it sucks that it's not popular, if it was popular and it was on Netflix, it would have been canceled in season 2. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, that's how Netflix works.
They need a higher fan base. MGM does it. It's not mainstream. It's like you said, it's a cult following, but it's not in mainstream.
Yeah.
And they're spending just enough to be able to make the show.
They're delivering a quality product. But if their plan was 5 seasons, then that's it. That's all you're getting. If we're lucky. It was renewed for 4th, and hopefully the fervor that has happened in season 3 will continue into the 4th, and we'll get the 5th, and the story will end as it's supposed to. But I think anything beyond that, like, yeah, we're only running 10 episodes a season, so you're only getting 20 more episodes. As much as I want more backstory, I don't think that we'll get it. But there's an opportunity for it to be created. It's not going to warrant like a show, I wish. You could even go webisode routes, honestly, and probably do fairly well. But who knows?
I think I've said this before, but I think what we've been noticing lately is with the 10 episode runs or 6 episode in the case of the Walking Dead universe, let's say, television seems to be going this direction of, well, we're not going to do these 24 or 22 episode seasons. We're going to just go ahead and create these really powerful and long episodes of only 10. But with the idea that there's a ceiling of 5 seasons, I'm with you guys on the idea of maybe a comic book, whatever. Depending on how this series shakes out. First of all, I love the fact that we have a ceiling on this narrative, which means that come hell or high water, mysteries ought to be solved. Loose ends ought to be tied, let's say, right? We have 2 seasons to do it of 10 episodes each. It's the direction television's been going all along, is that there are going to be some loyalists and fans and people who do the things that we do on live streams that last 6.5 hours long, 7.5 hours long, where we were there from the beginning-ish, let's say, while it was happening. That's fine. And you could be that guy that was, I was there before it was cool, because here's the thing. That's where television's been heading all along. When I talk to people who talk about these shows, oh, I'll just watch it all when it's over, because that's the way they're designing these series. Got 10 episodes a season. If I binge the whole 50 episode run, well, that'll be way more satisfying than waiting week to week. I'm just saying more on the popular side of things, because I know you people are of a certain age where you remember commercials and having to wait week to week and trudge through commercial breaks. And the narratives are even designed to keep that in mind, that you have to wait, week to week.
I love a week wait because it gives my brain time to process everything. And I feel like there's more value in that than there is in binging. However,
but most people don't.
Because everyone, well, here's the thing. Could I watch all of From in a month and pay one price instead of paying every month to have the streaming service? Of course people are binging. They forced our hands.
I agree. I like having the week, but I also know that I have no willpower because I intend to wait when I watch something and I don't. I watch one and then I stay up till 6 a.m. to watch the rest. I never quit when it's available. I remember Lost. You didn't have that option. You had to wait, and it was annoying as hell, but at the same time, that's how you got those water cooler moments. That's how you figured out things, and that was just part of the experience.
Exactly. And it's a dying art, too. And for those who are there, my major criticism of Fallout was the fact that they just released everything at once. It was like the Netflix effect. And they still designed the series in such a way that every episode was kind of like, well, what's going to happen next? Do we predict the next episode? No, they're all there in front of you to watch. But anyway, my point is something Bridget said a long time ago, which is TikTok is ruining my brain chemistry. And it's doing that to everybody, even our generation, invariably, because, yeah, we all feel it, but we're all trying to retrain ourselves, potty train ourselves to wait week to week for each episode to come out. And I even had this argument with a younger generation person on our Twitter/X. I had said, oh, I wish you just dropped, she has said, I wish they just dropped the whole season at once. And I'm like, but really, do you? Aren't you having so much fun on X, theorizing, going onto Reddit with all these theories that are out there, all this lore about the indigenous people of such and such place that this theory is about? Oh, and then you go to the kimono wearing lady that happens to be a Japanese folklore thing about the ubume. Okay, listen, you love it. And she goes, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So simultaneously,
that's the fun of it.
It's trying to retrain you.
They don't get enough answers, but if they got all the answers, they'd be bored out of their mind.
Yeah,
that's
correct. Correct.
Thank you for falling into my trap because it's what Jade says in the episode. Thank you. We brought it back. Finally.
You could have just told me.
Jade, would you have listened? Really? Would you have, Mr. Escape Room? People are trying to tell you, this place is this is great. Who's going to go to the diner? The set design of this diner could use some work. Jade, you wouldn't have listened if they just came out and told you. You needed to go through a journey, brother Jade. It applies to everybody on the show. You needed to kind of go through the thing that you went through. You were saying it about Sarah earlier. Could Sarah have found the strength to leave her abuser without her brother? No. Could she have found the strength to I hate this, but to torture Elgin, to rise up and do something that Boyd just couldn't go the distance on? No. Did this place heal her in a roundabout way? Yes. Did it turn her into a monster? Also, yes. people needed to go through something to reach the certain point that they needed to reach in order to be receptive, unfortunately, for the most part, to this place. So, which begs the question that we asked sort of at the beginning in the second season of the series. And it's something we have to kind of bring up every now and again. Is this the kind of place that ultimately makes you become what you're meant to be? Or is it one of those things where it's a double-edged sword? It does the thing that you need to be, but also in service of its designs. I kind of wonder if that rule still applies, that Walking Dead universe makes you the person that you're meant to be.
I never thought about it that way. Maybe it's showing your weaknesses or what you really are, that you're not believing that you are. Maybe I am a greedy person and it's really showing me that I am a greedy person being there, showing it's our fault.
That is really interesting, because then is this like one of those series that two gods have a wager about the nature of man? Is that what this is all about? Has that been the whole thing the whole time? Is the question I asked at the beginning of this podcast episode. I said, is this one of those things where we get these people to a point where they would sacrifice their children to live forever?
This is the book of Job, then. He laughed.
Love a good Bible reference.
Floated away.
No, I was just like, yes.
It's the book of Job.
Yes.
The beginning of the book of Job, the devil goes to God and says, I can turn this guy against you. And God's like, you can try. Here's some ground rules. You can't physically touch him. Here are your rules. Do your worst. And the devil's like, here, drop a building on your family and all of your kids will die. And also all of your livestock will die and all of your crops. And now you've boils all over your body and everything is horrible. And your wife is like, stop crying, get over yourself. And his friends come to visit.
Sorry, I denied you my delicious laughter.
His friends come to visit and they're like, surely you've done something to piss God off. And he's like, I haven't. And they're like, well, you're wrong. And that's I mean, there's more to it, but like because by the end of it, he has everything in tenfold.
Right.
And he never becomes unfaithful. But it's the same concept. It's like, it's the devil and God have a wager. And can you turn these people against their core beliefs?
Which is kind of like Lost, since it's the writers, executive producers from Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. The Man in Black and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacob, was it? Yes. Right.
To be fair,
Choose
though,
your champions, Jacob.
evil is in a lot of things, though, too, not just Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that a lot in our coverage of season 1 and season 2 of From, because it kept getting brought up, was the Lost connection. And I was like, I don't care. I understand that Lost existed. I get it. I watched it. But I don't care right now in this instance, just because I was like, they couldn't have been
Can
like,
we move on?
they couldn't have been like,
hey.
hey, you remember when we made that show and it was like a huge sensation, but then we ruined the end of it and everybody was really pissed? Do you remember how that happened? Let's do that again. Why?
Which is what the fear was.
Why? Why would they do it again? Why would they do it again? They didn't. This is different. There was a lot of that. Well, there was a lot of religious overtones in Lost to begin with, period.
And there was a lot of editing on my part of those episodes where they kept complaining about is this Lost? You have no idea how much I edited out to kind of, okay,
Well,
can we
I
just
mean,
move on from
yeah.
this point?
I get it, because
anyway.
it is the same. It's some of the same people, so I understand. And it was a huge deal because Lost was really cool, and not just like Lost was cool as a show, but Lost had excellent marketing. It had crazy online stuff that it had never existed before. The amount of detail in their marketing campaigns was insane. You remember all those like Dharma Initiative puzzles and stuff that you could do where you were like getting these videos of this girl. One, if you're going to repeat anything,
Well, they
where
started
is that?
and only had the one little piece, and then they never went anywhere with it yet.
It's frustrating. That's what I want more of. I want to be fully immersed. Give me something in between.
Yeah.
I want a webisode during the season break where we can dive deeper into the lore.
Well, I
Please
do.
no.
I do.
Because I kind of like it. I kind of like we get to wait. Ooh.
I know. But that was my favorite part about The Walking Dead.
Yeah, we were big into the web maze. I wish that they would do more than that. I mean, we got the rendezvous and the website thing, but that was it.
Yeah.
So far, anyway.
Speaking of rendezvous, let me just show you. Everybody's seen this. Everybody and their mother has seen this. Let's just put it on the screen.
Oh,
Why not?
okay.
'Cause who
Have I
cares?
seen it?
we got to see this part, the town map, right in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And it was on the Rendezvous box. Rendezvous, is that the same as Victor's box truck? Is that what that is?
I think so, yeah. And
By the
boy,
way,
Yes. Yeah,
It's come-
correct. And then also the ad or whatever.
what I love about this, and I wanted to bring this up just in passing, was that when you get to see this and how the town is laid out, I love the fact that this is completely unnecessary, actually, when you think about it, because the town, or at least the show, sorry, does a great job of giving you a sense of geography already.
Yeah,
But
I
to
think so.
have this confirms everything that you think about where everything is in this town. I love that we get this. And I love these little pieces on the screen. There's the church, there's the diner, there's the pool. It doesn't look like it says pool, but it's pool. And
It says pool.
the talisman tome. Yeah, I know. It looks like, is that D006?
I know, it doesn't-
Somebody doesn't
know how to
the
print it.
station. But it's so accurately depicted.
It's been nice to see where the clinic is, though. I couldn't figure out where the clinic was.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because I always thought that you can see the mouse on my screen, right? Because here's Colony House CH,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I always thought the clinic was this direction because of the way Elgin is driving away with the stabbed Ellis, who, by
yeah.
the way, in a short period of time, he just is completely healed, which it's good to mention in passing that it seems to be healing Ellis miraculously fast. Meanwhile, it mentions in this episode that Christy is healing awfully slowly.
Mhm.
But again, it confirms most of what you think where everything is in this town. And that's such a credit to the show's ability to convey geography, which is immensely important, especially on a crazy damn show like this.
I like they don't know which way north is, though. I never noticed that on the map. Did you see that? There's like a little north with a question mark. No,
Yeah,
I'm like,
I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
although that takes you down rabbit holes with the whole,
I assume no compasses work there.
Is a postmodern thing. Listen, north is what you want it to be. Apples.
Ew.
Sorry, I'm bringing Earth Abides into the conversation.
Stop it, Dave.
It's what
Already
you want it
talked
to be,
about that show.
right?
The cinematography has those really great long shots, though, where you can see the buildings in the background and kind of up the hill to Colony House. So they've done a really good job with the cinematography to ensure that you kind of knew where everything was. That's why I said I always struggled with the clinic. Where that set sits must be too close to other things. At first, they were shooting it from like the front, and like it was always on the left, and there was all that long grass. And then all of a sudden they started shooting it from the other side, like it moved or something. It didn't actually move, but do you know what I mean? Like the set moved. Because
Or at least it was filmed in such a way that you really were never sure.
in the very first episode, it looks very different than how we know it to look now. Not the clinic itself, but like how it sits, like the geography of it.
Where it's situated in the town.
somebody I saw on Reddit before said there was like a building behind it or something that isn't there now. I think they just probably changed what they were doing after the pilot, and
Mhm.
a lot of it's on sound stages too, so it's hard to tell.
I do feel like sometimes that things change, like the ooh about the kimono wearing lady, because of the audience reaction. So maybe this is one of those things. It's just where things are situated.
I think the whispers disappeared, much like Lost, so they took it out. That's what I want.
I also like the map
Oh.
in the sheriff's office where they have the little pinpoint of where everybody's from.
It's one of my favorite pieces. Yeah.
I do regret one thing not taking a screenshot of in this episode is when Jade, Tabitha, and Jim go inside the box truck and there's Victor's map in the back, which is wildly different than I remember it, because there's like a 1 and 2 in certain places. It's just it's so much to look at in that damn box truck. First of all, just kind of like his little apartment in Colony House, the little attic apartment.
I had wondered before if it was Miranda's that he changed, not necessarily his originally, but that was never made clear, so I don't know.
Yeah, I did take screenshots of Miranda's and Eloise's grave because I want to bring up the subject of, and this is always a little hot button topic while Bridget looks for the map that I'm speaking of in the background. I'm sure she is. Eloise confirmed dead? Question mark? Is everybody still convinced she may be the witch in the woods? Another mystery that we kind of left is a tether that's hanging, thing knocking around the cabins.
If she was dead, why not just say I found her body? I don't know. To me, it had more significance that he wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's delicious conversation that could be potentially violent.
I kind of agree with Jamie. I think they would have said, hey, we found her body.
Bridget, is Eloise dead as a doornail? Or is she...
I've always been hesitant that she is. Now, I did not think that she lived in that little village
Yeah, I'm
whatever
not sure about
weird theory
Like
that
Charity
was.
said. Yeah.
I did not agree with that
The
at all.
witch
I
in
was
the
like, that doesn't
woods.
make any sense. Because again, in this, I'm the straight man, and I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense, and that's stupid.
Do you think she could have got out of the town though? Because we've had that conversation too.
That's what I wonder is, did she get out and she was young enough that she maybe wouldn't have been able to remember where she'd lived or anything? And so then is she just like a normal person now?
Or could she have come back as somebody else and we don't know it?
Yeah.
Although the ages are kind of iffy. It's hard to tell.
Oh, like Fatima killed Tilly, and Tilly is Eloise, right?
I think Tilly's too old. Or
Okay,
was too
that
old.
doesn't check out at all. But sure,
I
Dave,
joke
whatever you
only
want.
because for once I'm reclaiming my title as straight man, because I do believe Eloise is dead, but I think there is a genius behind the fact that we didn't see a body, the Walking Dead effect. Oh, if you didn't see a body,
No one's
you don't know
gone
if it's dead.
till they're gone.
Yeah, I'm actually honestly of the camp that, and I even use the theory like, well, she's so dead that she was dead while she was in the town. And when they played hide and seek, Victor couldn't find her because she's like the kimono wearing lady. She just appears suddenly and then suddenly doesn't. She's great at hide and go seek. What I'm thinking is she's dead as a doornail, and she's been dead longer than people care to admit. How about that? Let's fight now.
Disagree.
Okay, let's do violence.
All right, I got the map. There you go.
Hello.
So there's the map.
Wow, that's a really good grab.
This is from a user on Reddit called OKSize3934. So thanks for that, OK Size.
Yes, they're happy about their size. It's great.
You can see, the church is down here and the diner. So this is Colony House right here.
Oh,
This is the Brundles.
okay. So there's a 2 behind the colony house over the ridge there.
Yes, I see
That's
that
what I was
right
referring
here.
to.
And then
The red 2.
this is interesting, but I wonder if this is the village because there's these like stick
Yeah.
things.
Oh, really? I would have assumed that was the houses, maybe.
Well, the diner and stuff is down here.
The cabins.
That's what I'm
Right,
talking about, the little
right.
village.
Okay, you mean
Right. With
as they call the other people call it by show, Cannibal Village. That's what they start calling
Yes.
right,
it.
the
yeah.
cabins with the wards.
It's
The
just
ward,
because there's
yeah.
these little stick cross figures right here that make me think that maybe that's what that is.
I was thinking that might be the car graveyard, but I don't know. But maybe you're right.
This is the lighthouse here.
And there's an arrow pointing there. Oh, because it's a faraway tree arrow.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, that
Huh.
probably,
And you notice there's one
He's
pointing
tracking
for the
his jumps.
pole too. Oh, well, you said that's the Brundles. See, I thought maybe that was it.
This is the clinic right here because this is the ambulance. This is the motel sign and the car in the pool.
There's still an arrow to that too.
And it's a bi-directional arrow too. So these are faraway trees that are bi-directional, I guess. That they're static instead of random.
Yeah, I guess. Here's the dog.
more than
and
one?
then there's a number 3 down here.
Yeah, there's a blue number 2 somewhere on the map too, if I'm not. Oh, sorry, blue number 1, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere on that map, isn't there? Or at least there was in the episode.
I
in
don't see it. It
question.
might have gotten cut out. It might be
It's
over
not on this one.
here
Yeah.
somewhere.
I see a whole bunch
Yeah.
of stuff that doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
Well, no, there's like a ton.
Not yet,
This is
at
like
least.
this looks like a hopscotch thing, but it's like a bunch of numbers over here.
And then you have like the underground
On the
thing.
top right of the map.
Yeah. And then what is this?
The snow
I think that's-
globe.
I
It's the
was
snow
thinking-
globe.
It could be, but I think that's supposed to be like the town and then like the underneath part where the monsters are, I would say.
Oh, this.
Hmm.
No, the bottom of, well, I can't show you, but the bottom of that.
Oh, I see. This half part of it. Okay.
Right. It's kind of like when you look at a map of the world, or at least the United States, and that's the part of Hawaii and Alaska, basically. That's what he's showing.
Interesting.
It's interesting though to see that there's in that bubble, that circle in the top right of the map, there is something on top of that, on top of the bubble.
yeah, right
What
here.
is that? Or is that trees? I don't know. It's fine. You could see it better
Yeah,
than I
I
can.
didn't
but
even
obviously
notice.
it's on
I
screen.
cannot tell. This almost looks like a cab of a car.
Well, maybe that's the outside
okay.
world.
Yeah.
Could be.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
And then this is the town, and then underneath is the
And then
tunnels.
there's
right,
this
okay.
X here, and then this is like this trails down back to this road.
Oh, okay.
And then
so maybe that's where
I'm
the loop
unsure as to
happens.
what this is also, but it looks like some sort of totem.
Or
Grave.
totem or grave.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Which maybe that's where he buried his mom.
That would
Mhm.
make sense.
So what do you think the numbers are, though? Settlements or?
I am not sure.
I had heard somebody, and I don't know, but they had theorized that it had to, like it was the steps because he was counting them. But I think they would be a lot higher than that.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
They'd be way higher.
Yeah, so I don't know.
And since you brought that up about steps, Victor was talking about how it was moving. They never really went into any more detail about that.
No, they didn't.
Great point on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. And it was moving.
Yeah.
He did count the stuff.
Somebody said, and I don't remember who it is. I'm bad at remembering who said things. Sorry. But somebody said, though, too, is it possible like he measured it when he was younger and then he got older and his steps got shorter? You know what I mean? Because his feet are bigger. I don't know. It's hard to tell with Victor.
Maybe things were changing. The leaves were.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the trees moved. I don't know, but
he counts to see if the trees are moving earlier in the first season and then does it again later, and they have moved. He's the same size at that point. So I guess that
I didn't think of that.
Doesn't really, it doesn't really
when
count
he said
there.
in the first season they move.
Yeah.
They have moved.
Unless osteoporosis is setting in. I don't know. He's saying that they're receding though, right? They're receding outward, right? They're not
like getting
moving
further
into
away.
Right. Okay. That's what I wanted to confirm, which was my theory about the town dying because the town wasn't doing what the monsters wanted them to do or whatever. The entity.
Is that what you're saying? It's actually getting bigger, the town part?
I was more thinking that the town was dying. And I say that because of the season changes, right? Because this town has always been mild spring, summer, perfect days. And the consequences is that crops aren't yielding anything because it's winter. The ground is poisoned. This town is dying, is what I was saying in the beginning of the season, let's say. As soon as this town got its hooks in, let's say Boyd, it's just trying to break Boyd, and it's working. It's working. Boyd is like all the time, right? Even in this episode. Father Fatri yelling at him, all that stuff. Do you remember when Acosta sort of did a Boyd in the diner with Kenny? I remember playing a clip of that for the episode. She was trying to like the thing with Boyd. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is it got its hooks into Boyd and the rest of the town. It got them to do what they ultimately wanted it to do. And of course, it yielded crops. Look at all this cabbage behind the cabins near the river. How wonderful. Their cattle is safe. Obviously, you see milk on the diner table next to Ethan. So the cows are okay. They're producing things. The chickens are laying eggs. The food's on the table. People are in the diner, all that stuff. So they're doing what the town wants it to do finally again. Because they were winning, right? They're kind of winning at the beginning of the season, sort of. I don't know what this town wants, and it gets so confused and frustrated. I remember thinking to myself before we got on, I am starting to feel the way some people who ejected this show are starting to feel, because with as many answers as we received in this episode, the big reveal of, well, Tabitha was Miranda, and she made many bracelets and all that stuff, and Jade was Christopher, and they made babies, or at least one daughter. Fine. But then Jim dies, and he was the key to the whole thing, and they took that key away. And Julie's story walking. Ethan warned her, you're never going to be able to step into the story. And true to form, she tries to stop Jim from being murdered. Future Julie. Let's stay on this part for a hot second. Let's just dump what I was trying to say earlier. Just forget it. Just don't even listen to me. You see future Julie. Mm-hmm. She doesn't listen to Ethan. She's like, I can change everything. The question I had, and this is actually the episode that I was with you, Jamie, on Sci-Fi Vision.
I think you're right, because we were talking about the rope and everything.
The physics. She was calling out to her mother, Tabitha, and Victor in the caverns, and they couldn't hear her. They should have heard her. They couldn't hear her. Why now? Why can she interact with Jim? First of all, Jim, who did not see the Yankui kids in the clearing near the faraway bottle tree. Now Jim can not only see future Julie and interact with her. Why couldn't she do that before, and now she can do that and interact with Jim and the man in yellow?
We have learned more, though, now, too.
I was going to say, like, maybe she's better at story walking now as future Julie.
Personally, I think as soon as she finds out her father's dead, she is going to try to do it. And I think it's going to take a long time for her to figure out how to do it.
Why she's got the shorter hair, it's to give you that passage of time. Like, things have changed about her.
She looks a little weathered. She has scars on her face from a claw attack or some kind. Yeah, well, I guess. In the future. I was even thinking that the Julie that you see at the end is a way to give you some of that backstory about the town, because how can she go further back in time than her when she first appeared in the town, to give you some of that backstory rather than show you a flashback?
I think she can't go back further than since she's been there. But I kind of wonder if she can go forward, because you talk about story walking, she can go back and review what's happened. But how many people read the end of the story first? So maybe she can go forward. And we also got into this discussion. I don't know if you guys watched Doctor Who.
I watched quite a bit of Doctor Who. I haven't watched all of it.
There's this episode, the point of it, there's this book that was written in the future. And he doesn't want people to read it because once they know the future, they can't change it.
Which Doctor is this?
11. It's with Riversong.
Okay. Yeah, I watched that.
I just almost wonder if, like, Ethan says she can't change what happened, but maybe she can change what's going to happen if she doesn't know about it yet. It made me think of that episode of Doctor Who. And the whole point of that was once you know about it, you can't change it. But what if you don't know?
Ethan does say that you can't change the story once the story has been told. So does that mean once it's written, told, what happens or not, it's already been told?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's kind of why I got into that, wondering, is it specifically if Julie's been told, or is it just in general? I don't know. But I don't think she can go past her own time there, because otherwise she could stop them from going to the town. She could save time. Like, I just think that would be not a good storytelling thing.
Bringing in time travel to begin with.
It's a good mechanic to have for time travel. Like, if you think about Kurt Vonnegut Jr.'s Slaughterhouse-5, you can time travel, but only within the time frame of your life. You can't time travel before you existed, because how would you exist then?
The original quantum leap premise.
Yeah, that's easier for our heads to wrap around, is like, okay, that makes more sense. It's good to set those boundaries. Otherwise, you end up with all of those different
paradoxes and everything else.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, none of it really makes sense, and it breaks its own rules. It's just hard.
So
that's
nature abhors a paradox.
Yeah.
And that's the question too. Is it actually time travel, or is it something a little different?
The thing that I was thinking about with all this is really the most important thing. That previous episode established that no matter what, she can't change the events of the time. And what was going to happen was always going to happen. That's what that episode was telling you.
Yeah,
which I love that time travel mechanic. That seems more accurate to me, or at least less dangerous. Fine. But what that is good for everybody watching the show is to see different vantage points. The thing that we all love, because it's kind of like what this town refuses to do. It refuses to share information, but Julie's story walking could be a way for the audience to see even more information that nobody's sharing. And for her to have always influenced some of the things that we've seen, the mysterious things, maybe things that we've been seeing in the town, it's for her to do them. And like the rope, guys, the rope, people obsessing over the rope. Well, now you know why. And maybe some other things that happened in this town. Maybe Julie was single-handedly responsible for collapsing the house. She set some charges. But I say this mockingly in a way, but maybe that's how that happened, because she was always meant to go to that point in time to make that happen. And it isn't as spooky as we think. I'm just using a dumb example. I'm sorry. I'm not being real with my Ancient Aliens brain. I'm not. Bridget, please stop yelling at me.
Literally just saying here, but okay.
Okay. Anyway, it's a good storytelling device is all I'm saying. But the thing that bothered me about this, and this is going to bother me until somehow they explain this, like the rope, is that part where she's yelling in the caverns and Tabitha and Victor are not hearing her.
If she's not good at it yet, okay, yeah, so she was able to touch a rope
have
and
a
throw
corporeal
it,
form,
but Boyd didn't see her. You could write it off as like he wasn't looking up when that happened, or whatever, but maybe her power isn't as strong as it can be later. Also, you're in a giant cavern, so I don't know, echoing and whatnot, and they're screaming and stuff too, and you're like, surely the monsters heard that, because you're talking like
or maybe
this, and it's so loud. But shush! Be quiet!
Maybe the Ankui kids were yelling so that they could muffle
People
Julie yelling out the
time too, because the whole Ankui thing was not at the same time her mother was in the cave. So it may have been she was like kind of falling through time and couldn't control it too.
Yeah.
I concept everything you guys have just said about her not mastering and things moving. Because right, she sees them suffering on the wall, and then she goes even further back with the. I get that.
I'm curious if Randall and Marielle are story walkers too.
That's what we wonder.
Oh,
I wish Randall had gone back. I really do. He should have went with her, and we would have found
Randall though. Randall's already having a hard time living in the present. That's all I could think of.
Because he didn't want that area that Julie went through. He knew something was up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to have someone there to carry you out.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'll just continue to story walk or whatever. So that means we can assume that someone is with Julie that has agreed to pull her out at a certain point. Because I would guess, if the man in yellow catches up to her and kills her, then she's dead for real.
Yeah.
In all time.
And he could have killed her then and there, future Julie. But he doesn't.
Can he? Because he also knows he's alive in the future. So that would create a paradox if he killed her.
True.
That's the other thing. That's why time travel is so damn confusing.
It's the worst.
Yeah, because now we've been getting into these discussions of people are saying that like Julie gave Boyd the talisman, but then that brings up like the chicken and the egg thing, and you're making a bootstrap paradox, and it's just too much.
Of course he doesn't want to kill her and I can accept that too, because she is doing what everybody else is doing, trying to solve the mystery. She's doing the thing that the town wants, going down the rabbit hole, serving the town's best interest by getting involved in this weird drama or mystery or whatnot. Like Boyd is falling to the trap of being broken and breaking Elgin's hand and all that stuff. That's what the town wants. And Katri, but fake Father Katri, is egging him on. It's like he's saying the thing that he knows he's going to do anyway. And Boyd's like, not me. Julie is saying the same thing. Not me. I'm Storywalker. Ethan, you're an idiot kid. What do you know? I can change things. No, not me, but everybody's not meing. And the perfect example of all of this is every single time Miranda, Tabitha, Christopher, Jade gets reincarnated, they say this out loud. They always try to save the children and they always fail. But this time we'll get it right.
Well, I think that's why the boy and white changed things this time too, because it hasn't worked before. They got to do something different.
Well, and other things are changing. Like the town itself is changing. This time is different.
It's definitely different. Yeah.
So maybe the thing that we need to watch out for is what is different. Is it Jim? Because Jim was the key with the music. I know I'm throwing a dumb nugget, but
well, yeah,
what
because
is different?
Miranda, Christopher, whatever they were before they were Miranda and Christopher, Jade and Tabitha were not romantically linked in this time because Jim existed.
And Henry didn't originally come to the town with Miranda. That's why I threw that out there, is because they're both somehow here in the town again.
I want to know what you guys think about something, because I don't know, it's something that bothered me. Why do you think Jade's visions are different than Tabitha? Because Jade makes a point of saying that his visions seem like it's what's not supposed to happen, but Tabitha feels like Miranda telling her that this is what's supposed to happen. Because he says that to her. And I've just wondered since then if there's a point to that.
It's almost like the visions are what you need them to be.
Yeah.
Tabitha is a person who can focus on hope and she wants to do what's best for the kids and she's kind of a protector of others. And Jade can be very self-involved. And it's almost like it needs to be gratuitously shocking for him to even consider it.
Do you get it? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They both get what they need in order to follow or to accept the messages or to accept what they keep having to do.
Granted, I have been wrong about every single thing I've theorized about the show, so probably not.
No, that's a good thing I hadn't really thought of. There's so many things, like, are the ghosts, I mean, they're not ghosts, but I'm calling them ghosts. How are they different than whatever it is they're seeing? Like, is there more than one entity? That type of thing, and you go back and forth and back and forth.
Right, and then is this a Faustian
I
bargain?
think Ethan is a critical piece. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Jim was, but I feel like Ethan, there's something with him.
Ethan is, because he sees the boy
threat.
in white, and the only other person to see the boy in white was Victor. But he said I
The other
hadn't seen
Ethan.
him in a long
But
time.
Tabitha's seen him when she...
That's true. And Sarah has also seen him, but Ethan sees him consistently.
Mhm.
And everybody else is kind of like here or there. It's happened.
Mhm.
So we know that he
Selectively.
exists because he's been seen by other people. But he doesn't communicate with Sarah regularly. He doesn't communicate with anybody else regularly. He used to with Victor when he was young, but Victor states in one of these last episodes, he doesn't talk to me anymore. He hasn't talked to me in a long time. It's almost like you have to be a kid to connect with him.
Yeah, I feel like he showed up a
Mhm.
lot in the first season when Ethan was hurt. He saw him a lot then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's true, then you have to wonder why Tabitha can see him, though, at the same time.
I think he can show himself to people, but I think it's like he's more connected to children.
Right. That makes sense.
I'm just going to drop this and we don't have to talk about it. But who says that the boy in white isn't like Julie, isn't a Storywalker?
Mm-hmm.
That makes complete sense because
Yeah.
according to Storywalker, what's going to happen is always going to happen. But the boy in white alludes in the last episode, every time I get involved, it doesn't go the way I think it's going to go. My help isn't helping. And so this time I'm just going to minimally be involved, or I'm just not going to tell you anything. And so what makes him any different than Julie?
I would say, though, he'd have to be way older because he's been doing that for like 40 years or whatever. I do think he's not a boy, but if we're saying they can only go back within their own timeline, he would have to be coming from far in the future. He would have to be old, because otherwise how was he around when Victor was around?
We're making assumptions that they can't go further back, which again gives us more dimension to previous generations that Julie can show us, previous backstories, et cetera, et cetera.
Or
Sorry,
he
Dawn, go
got
ahead. Sorry.
killed, and that's where he's at, and he just stays that age.
Yeah, maybe.
And he can still story
Yeah.
walk.
And he's just
Kidding.
stuck there.
Yeah, I always assumed he was a ghost, and that was why he's trapped there. He can't leave, and he'd like to. Part of that is when this cycle starts, he tries to get involved and figure out if there's a way that he can break whatever is happening.
Yeah, so he can have his peace and move on.
Yeah. If they can save the children, then everybody gets to leave.
The kids, though, are separate from the boy in white. That's where it gets confusing, too. Like, why is he different? Or does he have nothing to do with that? Maybe he was from Wayland.
Boy in white,
I
man
don't
in
know.
yellow.
Because he's also outside of the cave.
Yeah, sometimes you're just like,
Yes.
it
It hurts my brain.
definitely hurts mine.
Because he too doesn't necessarily interact with the world. Is kind of like what I was saying about Julie. He seems to be aware that he can only minimally be involved in whatever, or he chooses to be minimally involved because he's aware of the fact that he can't really affect the story, or maybe it's always going to be the way it ends up, however he's involved. And he was always meant to be involved in certain scenes, let's say.
Well, no, it's not always going to end up the way that it's going to be. You can't change it after it's already written.
And for him, it's already been written, is what
We
I'm
don't
saying.
know that. That's an
whether he
assumption.
can future or not. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm just playing with the assumption that he's a story, whatever. But it's something to think about.
If you can be a story walker and travel to the future, I'm not saying you can, but if you can, then has he been there longer than Victor and he's traveling that far into the future? Because the cycle keeps playing out over and over again. He's trying to make it so that it doesn't play out the way
Victor
that they want it
see
to.
him as a child.
Yes.
Yeah, he may
Yeah.
not even be a child. That hurts. Hard to tell.
Which is why he doesn't remember so much. Maybe.
I don't know.
But he doesn't look like young Victor. Anyway,
Forget it. Just forget
just
the
call
whole
it
thing.
just forget it. Well, I just messed everything up. And we're not going to take it any further. I wish we could, though, to be honest with you. And this is why I spent so much time this morning getting notes, hours getting notes for this episode. And yet there's never enough time. That's the thing about this show in particular, is that there's never going to be enough time, and we're always going to have to end it at some point. Oh, maybe we'll get on again. No, we won't. We'll pick it up again. Season 4 comes around, folks.
2026.
Yeah, 2026 to boot, which I think it's going to be spring, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, because they're not going to make us wait that long, I don't think. But folks, if you like what you heard, head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawking-dead. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what we know. We know. Stop yelling at us what we might have missed. But tell us after every single episode. It really makes a difference. We will, in some episode of Silo, of Dark Winds, we will say it out loud and we'll yell it on social media mockingly at you in your face. Or we'll praise you for being really nice about it. But tell us after every single episode. It really counts. And if you really like what we're doing, head on over to either Ko-fi or Patreon. That's ko-fi.com/squawking-dead or patreon.com/squawking-dead, and just follow us so that you can get our recording schedules. Following is free. Attending our recording sessions are free. It's the only way to get our recording schedules is when you follow on Ko-fi and Patreon, because it means that you're on the inside track. You're listening to the podcast. You know what to do, when to do it. We don't like to post our recording schedules on social media because you never know what rando is going to pop into your studio. No, you like us, you follow us, you do the things. But if you're really interested, tip us on Ko-fi. You'll get this episode unedited for 30 days, as well as my pre-squawk insights. And if you happen to join a membership tier, you can get more Discord access than when you just tip. Join the Whispers, Survivors, or Great M tier, and you will get a free classic t-shirt upon signing up. And if you happened to join the Survivors or Great M tier, you can show up on these episodes alongside us, letting us know your thoughts and telling me that I have ancient aliens hair and Bridget should take a couple more chances. Come on, Bridget. Why are you holding back, Bridget? We know you love conspiracy theories. You can tell her that to her face if you happen to join those 2 membership tiers. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by...
Bridget. You can find me at ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And we were joined by 2 very special guests this evening.
Jamie Ruby, and you can find me at sci-fivision.com or at youtube.com/sci-fivision. And we have a From stream at 11 Eastern coming tonight. So we got even more From to talk about.
And I'm Dawn Barker on Relishing the Dead podcast. You can find us on Facebook on Relishing the Dead podcast and on YouTube, Relishing the Dead podcast.
And check all their stuff out. They have back catalog that'll blow the lid off your ancient aliens
And we're
hair.
Monday nights at 8 p.m.
Every Monday.
Usually live streaming.
They're live.
Yeah.
participate in Sci-Fi Vision's chats, various long,
Or deep dive.
disgustingly filled, lovely nuggets of from information, as well as their reviews weekly at Tuesdays, I think it is.
Tuesdays.
And tons and tons of interviews for both Relishing the Dead and Sci-Fi Vision. Thank you very much for joining us, both of you, and for you, the audience, listening to all our crazy faces. We love you. Take care, and we'll hopefully see you very soon for another episode of Squawking Dead. Take care, everybody. Bye. Well, it's with a heavy heart that I put season 3 of From, as well as season 1 and season 2, to a close. I'm very happy that we actually finally made time to cover the season 3 finale of From, titled Revelations Chapter 2. And now we wait until 2026 for From to come back. I love that we got officially on this podcast the official information that From would only be 5 seasons, for those of you who didn't know, which means, like I said in the episode, they can't keep going on like this with all the mysteries piling on to mysteries and mysteries, unless they decide to do a spin-off or add some web series in betweens to complicate things, or as Bridget said, throwing on some other form of medium they could expand the story with, like comic books or games or stuff like that. In any case, at the end of every episode, we love to thank our supporters on Ko-fi and Patreon. It's a little perk that they receive when they join the Great M Survivors and Whispers tier, among many perks. Starting with the Great M tier, the Greatest Ish tier, we have at RealRyanGM on Instagram and X. In the Survivors tier, we have Douglas Atherton at Walking Dead Artist 2 on Instagram. In the Whisperers tier, we have Ko-fi.com/fanartlindy, at Eliza Jones 71 on Instagram, and at Kim.Rowley, the number 1 on Facebook. We still have a couple episodes of Silo to go, the 9th and season finale episodes. I can already tell you, and I'm trying not to spoil anything when I say, remember what we said in the last episode about how it was all fuse and no spark or explosion? Well, the penultimate episode is one to watch, is all I can say. The fear of the last episode not leading to some sort of massive reveal has been ameliorated. And of course, I'm stalling for time because it's hard to say goodbye to this season of From, and you never know what tomorrow brings. But whatever tomorrow brings, just remember that we, you, me, and everybody are Squawking Dead.